Mandy Bowman, and welcome to the Marvel at Jesus podcast from Life 90.5, where we talk with Christian artists and more about the things that wow them about Jesus. Joined today by Rhett Walker. How are you today, Rhett?
I'm doing well, and you?
Great. Our listeners love hearing songs like All Joy No Stress and a gospel song and Believer. We just can't get enough of that stuff. But in our Marvel at Jesus podcast from Life 90.5, the goal is to focus in on Jesus Christ himself and share some of the things that wow us about his character. So I know you've been writing Jesus music for a long time. You've been walking with the Lord for pretty much forever. So what is something about Jesus that really wows you, Rhett?
Yeah, I mean, I have been. I grew up literally in the church, being a pastor's kid,
Same.
and it's like, I've seen so many things of what God has done and how Jesus has worked. But I think the biggest thing that was a wow moment for me was growing up in the church, and you saying same, this. It's easy to just kind of take it as like a second nature type of thing, not in your relationship with Jesus, but things like grace and redemption and peace and all that stuff become these words that we just throw around, and we forget the gravity of what it means to receive mercy or to receive grace or to receive redemption. And a lot of times you forget the weight that they hold till you're in a big old honking mess. And growing up hearing that from my dad on the pulpits on Sundays, my mom is, straight up North Carolina, South Carolina pastor's wife. Like, she's going to rub your shoulders whenever she sees you. And so she's, of course, using those words on the daily. And, it wasn't till I was 17, and people know my story about being, teenagers and pregnant, and we were a teenage pregnancy story. I would say one of the biggest wow things that I've seen personally in my own life was realizing redemption to mine and April's story when we were 17 with a teenager, and like as teenagers, and then having a baby who is now 18, which is crazy, and graduating high school. I'm getting old. But to go have that, oh crap, what do we do? Is it over? I saw my senior year of high school. It's all hit the fan. And to watch your whole world just become just a ball of stress, to hit your knees and plead like, Lord, help us with this baby, and to feel that grace and redemption and see it every day when you thought, are we going to be able to buy formula because I'm a teenager trying to work 3 jobs? Like, are we going? And to watch God never let us go hungry. This girl grow up to be a young lady now, who's, like I said, graduating high school, and just to see redemption and grace firsthand instead of just a word that I used, in Sunday school at church. And then just to be reminded that he's doing that daily. He don't quit. Like, anytime I've thought, well, that's it, I done messed this one up, you get to see God just do what he promised he would do. And it's a beautiful thing. It sometimes sucks to see it firsthand because you're living through the storm, but it is beautiful to actually live through it on the other side and be like, man, he is a God of second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th chances.
And even for pastors' kids like us, who we obviously know better, right? So we've grown up being taught to know better. This is what God wants for us. This is sin. We shouldn't do this. And then eventually, inevitably, we're going to fall into some kind of stupid we're not supposed to. And that is so tough, because I've been in a situation before where, I knew better 100%. And I still made this mistake and just felt so much shame and grief afterwards. But then experiencing God's grace and mercy in the midst of all of that, it's like, I do not deserve any of this at all. It's like, I knew full well what I was doing, but God was still so kind to show me that mercy when I asked for forgiveness. And that blows my mind too.
I don't know why he continues. I mean, it's one of those things that, if it was up to me, like, I wouldn't give myself this many chances, but we read in scripture about grace and joy in the morning, and who he is and who his character is. I mean, growing up a pastor's kid too, especially in the Bible Belt of the South, like, I always had this, before I'd seen that grace, like I said, firsthand, and I had it every day up till I was 17. It wasn't like I was perfect and didn't need forgiveness, but
Right.
I didn't acknowledge it. And I used to think, during that time, God was one of those gods that, like, if it was a road, our life is a road, he waited on the pavement, and then, it was like leading us down this nicely paved road.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we mess up and end up in the muck and in the mud over here in the woods, he would just stay on the pavement and be like, whenever you quit being dumb and come back to me, I will continue to lead you, but you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been so cool as I've gotten older, and watching my teens live through. I've got two teenagers and two under 10, but to watch the teenagers do teenager things and to start to realize God's not a God that waits on the pavement. He's in the muck and the mire and the messes with us. And it's like leading us, going, there's an easier way over here on the pavement.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're over here, I'm gonna come with, and I'm gonna help try to lead you back. And he goes through the mess with us. And I think that's just one of the things, disrespectfully living, I forget so many times. And it's kind of a disrespectful thing because of the power and weight that goes to what he did to pour out that grace every day. And it's so easily forgotten until we need it.
Mm-hmm. We definitely take that for granted until we're in that mire and that muck and really need
And
him
then we're
to
like,
pull
thank
us
you,
out.
Jesus.
Exactly. For sure. Well, that is really great. Thank you for sharing that Jesus wow moment with us, Rhett. Now, what do you have coming up soon? What are some of your future projects you're working on?
Well, I just, I don't think I've told anybody this, but we've just pretty much finished the record, as like what we're about to go in the studio and record. This record has been all over the place. This will be my third like full record. And I started writing this record, and I was going to call it Prodigal. And I was thinking, through the prodigal story. Another thing, I feel like I'm just going back through my childhood going, dang, I really missed that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing that story, but I missed the point of it.
Yeah.
It's like when you realize like all the parables and stories that happen in the Bible, real and parables, always just point to, the need of salvation, of saving death, and then it comes back to life through all the
Mm-hmm.
stories. It's like, oh, the Bible is continually telling the story of grace and redemption.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, what happened? But back to my point, I was like, what happened to the prodigal? Like, what was his thoughts, 2 weeks after he got back,
Mm.
and we always end the story when the dad like runs and, puts the robe on him and puts the ring on him and they eat. And it's like, what happened, that next morning, even when he was sitting in the same spot of the kitchen, looking out the window where the pigs are laying. And it was like, God, yesterday I was in that looking for food.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not glorifying our past. It's also not living in our past, because I think we do that a lot of times. We bring up shame that God's already taken away.
Yeah.
But it's acknowledging the past of like, man, look what God has done. Look what God can do. And so it kind of became the thing of like, this is what I'm gonna write this record about. And then the record just morphed up from that song, and I wrote a song called "Look What God Can Do," which I think is going to be my next single. But I think we finally landed what we're going to do. I'm not going to say the name of the record yet, but I'm really excited. It's one of those records that's like, it started with the prodigal story, then with "Look What God Can Do," and it's just morphed into the story of my life and what I've seen. And it's like, if I could only make one more record, like, this is the record I would make. So
Oh man, I'm
super
excited.
Yeah.
All right. So you're going in to record that soon. So when are you expecting the album to come out then?
It'll be this fall.
This fall.
So
Okay.
new single will come out. It'll be a summer jam too. So
That's exciting.
which I think is what people expect of me, like upbeat, windows down kind of songs. And so I was like, man, this is what I like to listen to in my truck, so let's put out music like that. So I'm excited for everybody here.
Perfect. Well, we're excited about that too. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. We really appreciate you and your music and everything, all the encouragement that your music gives to our listeners too. It's a big deal. So thank you so much, Rhett.
Thank y'all for what y'all do. If it wasn't for y'all, it'd just be me, my wife, and my kids hearing these songs.
Hey, if you enjoyed this episode of the Marvel at Jesus podcast, go ahead and subscribe so you can get the next episode as soon as it comes out from Life 90.5.